As stated, my name is Trevor Grohs. I work for C&H Industrial, and I represent our Case IH brand specifically as a sprayer product specialist. I cover both Dakotas, north and south, along with a handful of other states throughout North America. I'd also like to extend a big thank you to the extension as well as our local High Plains dealer group for allowing me the honor to come speak with you all this morning. You all, I'll try to. I'm from down south, but it's not that far down. So with that, we'll go in, and as you see behind me here, you're going to see sprayer technology, and more importantly, how that technology drives quality application, which drives profitability of your operation. All right. So, plant fertility and crop protection are arguably the most two important factors in the production of agriculture equation. Do you agree? Okay. Without them, we sacrifice yield. Okay. Case IH offers a full portfolio of machine options to help curb these from pre-plant to post-harvest that are specifically designed to feed and protect your crops. We like to reference the 4 R's, which I'm sure you've all heard: right source, right rate, right time, right place. That is critical in going back up to your plant fertility and the protection of said products. Okay. Now, all the platforms have options to go to the full line of all these technology features that provide precision application, increased productivity, optimize yield potential, while in many cases also reducing your input costs. Right? So anywhere from the new 50 series Patriot Verboom spreader to our Trident 5550 combination applicator to our Titan floaters, all the way up to our Miller front boom offering for our high clearance piece. All of these are opened up to the vast array of precision technology options. Right? Now, given the time window we have here today, obviously, I'll reference the 50 series Patriot, for example. There's 10 plus technology options that you can tie to these machines, all keyed up to help you do things better, faster, quicker, more efficiently, etc. Obviously, we don't have that much time, so I'm going to whittle those down to 4 technology suites that I want to talk to you guys about here this morning. These 4 are some of the ones that are maybe a little more basic, but are very important when it comes back to the application quality conversation. All right. We all know that the technology footprint on today's farm is ever growing. It's ever evolving. And there's way more on the farm today than we'll be able to talk about. But again, these ones are somewhat often overlooked in some pockets of the world that can really make your application experience entirely different. All right? First one I want to touch on with you guys is going to be TWM nozzle control system. You guys very familiar with that terminology, what that does? Somebody answer what TWM technology control does. Yep. The short answer is a lot. Does a lot. Okay. The layman's response is it makes a good sprayer great. Okay. So from superior coverage to higher productivity, faster application speeds, reduced input costs, the PWM technology solutions provide a superior spraying experience. On the left-hand side here, you'll see some of the bullet points that we'll go through a little more in depth, and we'll kind of touch on, to help you guys understand why we feel that way. First one up here, very important. This is the one I always like to start with: constant rate, constant pressure, constant droplet size, while also allowing a wider speed range of the machine over a given orifice or tip that you select for your machine or your application. All right. So some of the big ones here is going to be this constant pressure. Okay, so as I'm going through the field today on a conventional machine, what's my pressure based off of? Speed. North. So as you slow down, we lose some of that pressure. Okay, we start losing boom pressure. What happens to our droplets? We lose a little bit of control of what is coming out of that tip at that point in those scenarios. So now when you roll into PWM technology, ACF2 in this instance for aim command flex 2. That allows us to maintain a consistent boom pressure as we slow down, speed up, which also then allows us to better maintain what's coming out of the business end of the sprayer. Correct? That's where everybody shakes their head and like, yep, that's right, Trev. Okay. Again, while doing that, we're also opening up a wider range of speed in which we can apply with a given tip. So before there was, conventional change, think how many times you would change your tip throughout the season, depending on the application. Right? It could be 2, 3, 4 times, or 5 times, depending on what you're all doing. A lot of times in the PWM technology world, you can get away with 2, 3 tips over a vast array of applications. All right. Moving down to the second bullet point here, another big advantage of why PWM technology is critical on the sprayer. This image here is the best illustration that I could find when we start talking about the high accuracy and precision with individual nozzle on-off control. So what does that mean? If you look here, in here, we're coming into an already applied and we have our no spray zone on the left side. Each individual tip on the sprayer becomes its own section. So let's take a 120-foot boom, 72 nozzles, for example. On a conventional rig, you're 6 or 7 boom valve sections. That breaks out the nozzles into roughly banks of anywhere from 10 to 12, 14 nozzles per second. When you roll in PWM technology and you add the nozzles full valve directly on the tip or on the nozzle body on the wet tube, we then essentially make each individual tip its own section. So now when we get into these point growth scenarios, things like this, we have higher section resolution, we have faster on-off times, higher section resolution with faster on-off times in these types of scenarios equates back to what? Savings, ROI, profitability, chemical reduction. And if we can narrow down where we're controlling to a single tip versus 5, 10, 15 tips that would be shutting on and off, those overlap potentials are greatly minimized. resulting in more product in the tank. Yeah.
How do you create the most crazy, like a
Yeah, so you can set up your external feed boundary. And then, within, so I'll reference the micro field computer, for example, you can go in and then, make additional in-field, no plant, no spray boundaries for the data. Great question. So we don't necessarily promote that we want you guys going as fast as you can. And quite honestly, I am a firm believer that there is the sticking mile an hour day. Albeit, there are various studies that have did improve it, but we don't. It's the way. That answers the question. Some sort of way. Yep, I don't disagree. Fascinating is not always better, especially when it comes to quality application, but we all know that we've got, some population of cowboys in the area that will spread as fast as we spread. No. Okay, the next thing I want to touch on here quick on these PWM control technologies is this graph here. Churn compensation is also a critical feature of a PWM control system. Churn compensation sounds pretty straightforward, Rex. What do you suppose it does? So as we're going through the field, we're going around our waterways, we're curving around ponds, things like that. As we make a left-hand turn, the inboard side of our boom is doing what? Slowing down. The right-hand boom is now doing what? I won't say what I usually say, but it's moving pretty fast. So with these nozzle control valves and how they're uniquely identified across the boom, we leverage the gyro and the ECU that will then allow us to reduce the duty cycle on the inboard nozzles, to reduce application, since we're going slower. On our outboard side, where we're going faster, we increase our nozzle control valve duty cycle to allow us to provide more product flow, given that we are indeed moving faster. How is that important to quality application? More uniform. Yep. We're not under-applying or over-applying. We're trying to make that in any given scenario, whether we're in a high G-force event or not, that the product flow is uniform on the board. Next one you'll see down here is in your product flow that's controlled by the chip. I touched on that a little bit, which results in that faster on-off. So these look ahead times that you'll see on your conventional machines, probably anywhere in the neighborhood from 2.5 to 3 seconds. On a PWM control nozzle, you're looking at like 1.2 seconds. We're looking at on-off times. And really what that boils back to is this top part of maintaining that constant pressure. So on a conventional machine, we don't have any way to shut off the flow from the tip outside of our manual dip trap. Okay, the pressure base. You gotta bleed the pressure out of your boom before that boom will quit flowing product. All right, vice versa on a conventional machine, when you start coming out of the headlands, that boom charge with the PSI that you really want it to be at. So We gotta build that pressure back up in the boom, because again, we just had to bleed it all off to turn around. Right? That makes sense? So, also goes back, adds into the individual nozzle on-off time, having that constant boom pressure there right away, making sure that we can control the droplet size from on, coming out of the headline. See kind of how it all comes full circle. Couple other features that a guy can utilize on these systems is going to be up to 50% above or 50% below duty cycle on a select number of NCVs across the liquid boom. Any idea where that would be useful? Wheel track. Yep, we get a little dust built up. Getting tipped up, we want to provide a little more product flow to the nozzles that are directly behind the wheels to kind of combat that. The other thing we utilize them for a lot is going to be perimeter spraying. So when you're going around the border the first time, generally see higher weed pressure on the outside of the field, correct? That allows us to increase some of that product flow to get a little bigger drink on some of those plants. Vice versa, you can then go back and half rate nozzles if you wish. Some of these references would be if you're going to run maybe a little narrower guidance whip. You're going to have a little bit more overlap potential, and you don't necessarily want the full rate out of that nozzle. Make sense? Okay. Next one down here on the list is going to be our 20 hertz. This is the frequency at which we pulse the nozzles on a nozzle control, on a PWM nozzle control system. 20 hertz is relatively new, at least to our platform. And really how that was derived was by studies with local universities. Again, many of those data points that you asked for. Going over the spray pattern paper, things like that, and really understanding that 20 hertz gives us the best potential, best coverage, again, which is going to drive that quality application, right? So many nozzle control systems to date, starting from 1998, ran at a frequency of 10 hertz. We've been killing weeds at 10 hertz for a long time. It's worked. We still give you the option to go back to 10 if you so desire. We also give you an option to go to a 15 hertz frequency if you choose. But default, we go to 20 by and large with the research that we was derived. Okay. Next big thing down here on the bottom. It also opens up this sprayer to be able to do a number of different modes of operation. So on your conventional machine, you have one job. You have room out there, however many nozzles, you're just simply going to go spray. If you're getting into different rate ranges, things like that, we got switch tips, etc., etc. When you start adding the PWM control system to the boom, this opens up these control modes. So I touched on high rate. One of the modes that you can get into is going to be what we call a high flow mode, which allows you to dispense product from both your NCV and then your secondary conventional stack on tip. Okay? With very minimal changeover downtime in the field. right? There's also standard mold, which runs everything through just the NCV nozzle. That's where they'll get that pulsing. There's some on-off mode, which will allow us to open the NCV 100% and leave it open. It will close it 100% and just leave it off. Those are used widely in the fertilizer arena, because why might that be important? If we can still go through the NCV and on-off mode, let's say we're doing our fertilizer. We utilize on-off, it doesn't take away from our section resolution. So an on-off mode, since we're still using the NCV, we still maintain individual nozzle control. So in lieu of guys going to a bypass or more of that conventional sprayer setup to do fertilizer with these rigs, which then ultimately kicks you back to a 7 boom valve section machine, you can utilize this mode of operation through the system to maintain settings. Very much. Yes, sir.
In fertilizer application, that fertilizer doesn't hurt the solenoid or I've heard people that maybe it's on older systems, but claim that it does.
Yeah, so there's a couple different poppet types that you can use within the nozzle control valve itself. One of which, that comes standard on the 50 series being a severe duty poppet. That is specifically designed with a different Vicon material. There's also some different cross interest cut on the poppet itself that help it kind of perform better in those fertilizer applications. I wouldn't say we necessarily recommend running it through the PWM or the nozzle in PWM or standard mode.
Yep.
But we don't stop you from doing that either. And with the severe duty poppets, it's like anything. If you're adamant about sprayer hygiene, making sure that at the end of the day, I'm not leaving said fertilizer just sit in my NCVs for days upon weeks, then I have no issue. If sprayer hygiene lacks, liquid system maintenance, things like that, then it starts rubbish. All right, I better speed up or they're going to boot me out of here. Okay. We'll touch on this quick, and we touched on it on the previous slide a little bit in that constant pressure, constant drop-off. Okay. I'm not going to go verbatim through all of our BDM droplet size indications, classifications, what they mean, and touch on the standard. What I want this slide to promote to you guys is that even with the best PWM control system on the boom, do not overlook the tips when you are sourcing tips for these machines. Okay, that is still a critical component to making the quality of the application come forward. Okay, well, so the two big takeaways. This got kind of small. I'm not sure you guys can see that really well, but two big takeaways is always read and follow the manufacturer's labeling. Okay, that is the gospel when it comes to tip selection. Many cases they have dedicated tips that they recommend you run. Okay. The last big one down here that I want to touch on is also be mindful of utilizing tips that are specifically designed for PWM control systems versus tips that are specifically designed for conventional control systems. All right. The conventional tip I reference all the time is going to be our AI tip, air induction tip. Those do not work in the standard mode PWM conventional. All right. That makes sense? Maybe? So, long and the short of it, make sure that we're sourcing the correct tips, following the charts, following the labels. Once we've identified those tips, This is just a quick snapshot of some of the UI within the cab that can give you an in-cab live speed, essentially, of what you would expect the droplet size to be coming out of the tips. So you can enter the tips that you have selected specifically. You can reference their BDM charts and program them into the rate controller. That will then generate this graph over here and give you kind of that scale of where you are, given your rate, your pressure, and your orifice. It's kind of a handy feature. Again, why? Because, why? Why are you feeling? Because that is important to ensuring that we are driving quality application. Okay? From there, the next one I want to touch on quick is going to be auto boom height control, or XRT in this example. Really what it boils down to, there's been auto boom height control systems out in there, out in the industry forever. The new proactive approach, which I'll touch on a little more, and how that compares to the old reactive approach. So, is boom height in relation to your ground, the canopy, is that important in achieving your quality application? Yep. Yep. So when we start talking about reactive height control, or a legacy height control, as you might hear me call it, you're gonna have a number of sensors, whether it be radar or ultrasonic, along the boom. Their sole job is to sit out there and look and say, hey, guy, I see something, I'm gonna lift my boom up. Okay? The early concept auto boom systems really did not bring things full circle as it pertains to making sure that we're maintaining a proper boom height to maintain proper application. All right? Yeah. It's big enough. So when we get to this proactive auto boom control being XRT, we roll in a slew of other sensors on the machine. So we add our ADM inside the chassis. We have positive position feedback for our left and right boom tilts, and we also monitor the center rack rotation. So now, in lieu of just this sensor across my boom telling me, hey guy, you need to go up, we bring this to more of a closed loop system where sensor A says, hey man, raise. Chassis says, hey, we just went through this dip. Positive position feedback from the boom tilt says, hey, I'm here. Let's make this adjustment, versus the legacy systems that would have just said, I don't care what the rest of you are doing, I'm raising this up. Oftentimes it can lead to between the two. So that's really the concept as to why we went to the proactive versus the reactive and embedded some more of this technology in the machine. So effects of inaccurate boom height. Boom height increases more than 30 inches from the initial target height, i.e. 30 to 60 inches off target application change can increase up to 3 times that of the initial target height. What's that mean? Greatly increases our off target application changes, right? We don't want to have that conversation with a neighbor, right? We don't want to condense our stuff and get his. So it's critical that we keep the booms level, stable, maintained, and follow the contour as best as we can in the condition. Vice versa, when the boom height decreases 1 or more inches and or resulting ground contact, spray concentration per square inch increases up to 15 times. In addition to skip and crane pattern between the nozzles. Sounds like we may not be getting the right coverage, right? We're not getting that quality application in those scenarios when our booms are way too high or way too low. So often overlooked in the quality application mindset is auto boom height. And maybe so because of what I expressed on some of the legacy systems, just simply keeping the boom out of the dirt for you. The technology packages are much more advanced, closed loop now. We know what the left hand is doing and it's talking to the other side.
You want them out at 110 degrees on ideal height. The second height down on the canopy.
What's, say that one more time?
Ideal height for the canopy, 110 degree knob. Where do you want them at?
The minimum, I'll shoot you the minimum. Is gonna be roughly 21 inches. So. Kind of your discretion from there on out, but that 21 inches is kind of the baseline as to where you'll see. The one that's being affected. And your alternative patterns. Coming together. That makes.
What's the matter? You just said. Minimum and maximum on all that kind of stuff. Yeah, coverage, what's the highest you want that?
That could become a kind of a loaded question depending on the tip, the pressure, anything like that, that's rolled into the system. Pressure's high and you have a finer tip, that maximum is obviously going to change. Because then we start to become grip susceptible, essentially. So I don't have a bulletproof 21 to 60 inches by any means, because there are some conditional things that play into how high you can you go over. That makes sense? All right, a couple more I want to touch on real quick. All right, one more we're going to touch on real quick. It's another application, liquid product application option you can throw at this machine. It's going to be direct injection. So is anybody familiar with direct injection in here? Nope. Okay. So direct injection allows us to add a secondary application tank to the sprayer. We can then inject that chemical downstream of the main carrier. Right? Down at the boom. What does that open up? That allows us to maintain that home carrier. We're only introducing product at the boom. So when we go to exchange out product, our rinse time is down. More efficient, less components exposed. The other big one I'd like to touch on is going to be the buffer zone coverage. Let's say you have product AD in your injection tank. Neighbor's crop on the other side of the fence is susceptible to product AD. But you want this product on your field. So in lieu of not applying it or having to go back to the truck and add it later after you outline the field, is you can spray your traditional tank mix for your headlands, your first couple passes. Once you get out into the center of the field, you can turn on products AD in the injection system to then broadcast the rest of your field with that. And just give you a little bit more room between your place and the neighbor. Okay? All right. I think he's gonna shut me down. So, with that, before I finish out, they would not let me do the pyrotechnic thing that I usually do when I do one of these. And I also need you guys to refrain from standing ovations and jumping up and down and hooting and hollering. In all seriousness though, on behalf of Case IH and our local High Plains dealer group, really appreciate the time today. And I wish you a fun, safe, and profitable 2024 growing season. Thank you.